recording from a WolfNet transcript of a conversation between Jamie Wolf, Rhonda Snord, and Cranston Snord, following confirmation of the return of the clans. Cranston, Rhonda, we've known each other for years. In the past, you and your irregulars have supported and followed me. I have to know now, where do you stand? Do you side with the remaining Dragoons, or with our kin in Clan Wolf?
Colonel Wolf, sir, with all due respect, the irregulars will stand behind the Federated Commonwealth and the rest of the Inner Sphere. Among other things, the problem with the clans is they just don't have a sense of humor. Frankly, we think it's time we gave them something to wonder about and something to fear. I can't wait to hear them squeal when I play Shake, Rattle, and Roll over the comm. Though usually assumed to be a purely Inner Sphere battle mech, the Maelstrom has a history dating back to the Star League, though it didn't show up in physical form in the Inner Sphere until 3058, as the designs for it were locked away. As Kerensky's SLDF forces tried to restart human civilization, and then tried a second time, the Maelstrom was produced following the same plans that would later be unlocked in the Inner Sphere with the discovery of the Grey Death memory core. Thankfully, both the mechs are functionally identical, just with different manufacturers. Weighing in at 75 tons, the Maelstrom was conceived as a powerful heavy mech which could use its speed to avoid being dragged into brawls or being pinned by light mechs. When the Grey Death memory core was discovered in 3028, the Star League library records included the schematics for the Maelstrom, and its capabilities and technology were immediately attractive. However, it would take time for Inner Sphere scientists to sort out just how to replicate things like XL engines, ERPPCs, and ER-large lasers. By the mid-3050s, General Motors felt up to the challenge of making the Maelstrom a reality. They already had experience producing the first two of what are called the Marauder series of battle mechs. The Marauder and Dragonfire were already in production, and the MTR-5K Maelstrom would complete the set, if they were able to get their act together and make it happen. Technology had advanced leaps and bounds in the years following the clan invasion, so the time was nigh. A production line dedicated to the Maelstrom was constructed on Cathil, which is in Davion territory near the border of the Capellan Confederation. Built around a Norse TRA-34 heavy steel framework and a newly designed Ford 375XL Fusion engine, the Maelstrom was designed to be a quick mover in comparison to most 75-ton Inner Sphere battle mechs. With a top speed of 86 km per hour, it could keep up with many medium mechs and avoid being closed in on by heavies and assaults. The 14.5 tons of standard Kellan Royal Star armor is decent for mechs of the time, offering 231 points of armor protection. For comparison, the 75-ton Dragonfire also had 14.5 tons of armor, so the Maelstrom was right in line with its peers. The Maelstrom was given 19 of the newly designed Inner Sphere double heatsinks, which could be put to good use in an all-energy weapon loadout. The two primary weapons are a Defiance 1001 extended-range particle projection cannon in the right arm and a Cyclops 12 extended-range large laser. Both of these weapons provided the Maelstrom with incredible range and allowed the mech to avoid standing in the fray while still consistently sending shots downfield at targets. Backing up those big guns are two Defiance P5M medium pulse lasers split between the center torso and the head, and a Jackson Model 12 small laser located in the center torso. Finally, a half-ton of the mech's weight was saved for an installation of a target acquisition gear set to allow the Maelstrom to act as an artillery spotter. What we're left here is a speedy 75-tonner that can hammer targets with its ERPPC and ER-large laser at long range, while staying heat neutral. If the fight does get up close and personal with those two medium pulse lasers and small laser, they can be a significant threat to light and even medium battle mechs. Without any ammunition, it can operate in the field for as long as the Mechwarrior is fed and watered. Now, if you need the comparison, think of the Maelstrom as a slightly speedier Marauder. Now, the official art for the mech is from the 3058 technical readout and is done by the legendary Dwayne Luce, which is great, though the unique angle does make getting a good read on what the mech looks like a little bit more challenging. Now, there is an Ironwind Metals version of the Maelstrom 5K, which is great. I definitely recommend going to check it out from the site if you need more help kind of figuring out what this thing looks like. We really only have one piece of art that I was able to find. Though historical records for the clans in those early years are spotty, We know that the Maelstrom was both in production and used during Operation Klondike through what is commonly referred to as the Golden Century. The years between roughly 2834 and 2934 are where most of the advantage in technology between the Inner Sphere and the clans was developed. While the great houses were tearing each other apart and regressing, the clans were refining and innovating upon almost every aspect of their worlds. The clan version of the mech is not functionally different from the 5K until some point following Operation Klondike, when Clan Widowmaker, who christened their version of the Maelstrom the Redback, armed the mech with an enhanced ER-PPC, a clan standard ER large laser, 2 SLDF surplus medium pulse lasers, and a prototype ER medium laser. If you're looking for this record sheet, check out the technical readout for Golden Century or the Redback on Flex Sheets. Demand for the Maelstrom was significantly higher than GM had predicted, and orders quickly overwhelmed the ability of the production line to meet them in a timely manner. Instead of expanding to additional production lines or repurposing lines from other mechs or materials, GM sold licensing rights to North Storm Battlemechs, which was looking to produce a new heavy battlemech on their line located on Solaris 7. Once it was up and running by 3059, it was also flooded with orders. The Maelstrom was a hit, and it appeared as though there would be no end to the interest in the mech. A third line was eventually opened up on Midway by Telfar Battlemechs after the Cretan company purchased a license. This expanded the number of Maelstroms being produced and opened up new markets that wouldn't have normally been available for factories within the Federated Commonwealth. With production lines in Davion, Lyran, and Cretan space, the Maelstrom could be found in house military units, mercenary commands, and eventually even clan tumens as things got wacky with the word of Blake running around. Able to stand toe-to-toe against clan mechs, the Maelstrom was particularly popular along the borders with clan occupation zones. In one battle report from Schuler in 3063, a Chu-E named Suki Peterson was able to keep an attacking force of clan elementals and mechs at bay with their Maelstrom's ER-PPC. Eventually, she was able to take down a Ghost Bear Mad Dog in the chaos. If you're looking for something a little sneakier, the first variant of the Maelstrom was developed to take advantage of several information warfare packages. Labeled the 6E, most of the mech remains unchanged except for a downgrade in the secondary weapon systems in order to make room for a Guardian ECM and a Beagle active probe. The medium pulse lasers are swapped out for 2 standard medium lasers and 3 small lasers. The sticking point, beyond losing those medium pulse lasers, was the need to also remove 2 of the double heat sinks, which made the energy weapon mech much more susceptible to overheating. This led to complaints from those assigned to the 6E. When the manufacturer of this variant responded by offering a sub-variant that downgraded the ER-PPC and ER-large laser to standard versions of both, few were pleased. That sub-variant, labeled the 6K, is quite frankly an abomination. It significantly cuts the range of the mech's weaponry and eliminates the possibility of those rare ER-PPC headshots. While it can still act as a spotter and do a fair amount of short-range damage, the force projection has just been completely gutted. Whatever benefit that the ECM and Beagle offered is just squandered by significantly reducing the effectiveness of the battlemech. 2 out of 10 stars, do not recommend. Thankfully, we don't have to end our list of variants on a down note because there is a Dark Age era variant of the Maelstrom labeled the 7K, and it has some elements on it that can mix things up on the battlefields of the 32nd century. First, the upgrade to Endosteel buys some weight for additional toys at the cost of some critical locations. The addition of a supercharger in the right torso gives the 75-tonner an ability to push its top speed up to 100 km per hour. This can either get you into trouble faster or out of trouble if you've already created some before you have to suffer any consequences. Hitting 10 hexes of movement speed in a 75-ton mech is pretty nice. The weapons are new, though reminiscent of the original. The right arm still features an ER-PPC, but this time it's a ClanTech version. To back it up with a very warm but powerful punch is a ClanTech heavy large laser. 16 damage out to 15 hexes is nice, but you pay for it with 18 heat generated per shot. Thankfully, the 7K is back up to 19 double heat sinks, so you can fire it and the ER-PPC at the same time without going into the red. For close-range fights, a trio of medium X pulse lasers located in the right and left torsos and 1 in the head provides accurate fire out to 9 hexes for 6 damage apiece. Finally, there's a boosted C3S unit installed because there's no I in team, but there's an M, and 1 in Maelstrom. Actually, 2 in Maelstrom and an R, but That's not really important right now. An Alpha Strike with the 7K would generate 51 heat on 38 heat sinking capability, so please don't do that very often. Realistically, you're not going to be firing those medium X pulse lasers very often anyway, so it's not a huge problem. If you are up close and hammering away at some poor soul, drop the ERPPC from the shot lineup and you are golden. That would put you at 36 heat with 38 heat synced at the end of the turn. It's almost as if they planned it that way. I know I'm not usually a big fan of heavy lasers, but in this case, it's a great example of how they could be used effectively. The 1-2 punch of heavy large laser and ERPPC could be quite devastating on any opponent. Most mechs don't have enough armor to be sloughing off 15 or 16 points of damage every turn. I would absolutely take the Maelstrom 7K and a Dark Age Lance, and even the lore backs me up on this with the good reputation quirk. If you see one on the open market, snatch it up quick, Mechwarrior. Of course, we do need to do a Mech Frog variant, and I'm going to build it off of the 7K. We're going to keep the clan ERPPC just out of tradition, but mix everything else up a bit while staying in the theme of an energy-focused heavy. The only change in the structure of the mech is going to be the addition of 2 additional double heat sinks. It eats up a lot of the remaining critical spots, but we're going to make the most of it. In addition to the wallop of the ERPPC, we're going to add a plasma rifle to the left arm. Why? Because it's 10 damage plus some heat on mechs, and it can be used to completely obliterate ground troops if necessary. I like weapons that can serve a double duty. We're going to go ahead and toss the 2 tons of ammunition into the arm as well because it doesn't explode. And with our remaining 3 tons, we're going to add ClanTech ER medium lasers because there was a sale down at the Seafox Mart, 3 for the cost of 4. This gives the Maelstrom MF some good coverage at the mid and short range and will keep those pesky lights and medium mechs honest should they get too close. Now I wanted to test this out, so we busted out Megamech and loaded up 3 Maelstroms. One original configuration, a 7K, and an MF. Pitting them against an equivalent force of Inner Sphere heavies. Now I did vastly overestimate in setting up the fight, and the 3 Maelstroms did end up being destroyed by a Banshee, a Warhammer, and a Marauder. But that's okay, because we generated some good real-world data on the mechs. The ERPPCs performed well, as they tend to do, and the ER large lasers to a lesser extent. Closing in on the Marauder allowed the Maelstroms to pick it apart and take the kill, but the Banshee's Gauss rifle fire was accurate and brutal. The first Maelstrom went down, and then eventually the second and third under fire from the Banshee and the Warhammer combined. Closing on them to try to get the plasma rifle into play ended up being a mistake. Oh well, it's just millions of C-bills of investment and a couple of human lives. What's that mean in the grand scheme of things, right, Commanders? All in good fun. The Maelstrom remains a solid 75-ton mech, and one that I think is overlooked among some really quirky designs in the 3058 collection. The double heat sinks are a saving grace for a mech that can consistently send fire downfield. If it has a downside, it's that Inner Sphere XL engine, which is unfortunately a liability that is hard to escape in exchange for the mech's speed. Opportunity cost continues to be a cruel mistress. If you're a big fan of the Maelstrom and have used it in your games, please let me know how it worked out. Do you think it's a good alternative for the Marauder or Dragonfire, or are you sticking to the old crew? As always, thank you so much for coming by and giving the video a go as we walk down BattleTech's memory lane. It's interesting to see how many people recommended lesser known mechs for me to cover that are already on my radar. Somebody mentioned the Maelstrom on Monday's video's comments, and I was already knee deep in it. Great minds, etc., etc. If you hit the like and subscribe buttons, that would be peachy. That way you don't miss out on more nonsense from me in the future. Big thanks to the channel members and Ko-Fi folk who are helping to keep the lights on around here, as YouTube ad revenue ends up being about $1 per hour of work for each video. So you are appreciated. Take care, and until we meet again, go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.